Good evening and welcome. I'm your host Ben, and tonight we're setting aside the battles and sagas and drifting quietly into a much slower story, one of long winters, low light, and the quiet strength it took to endure them. No roaring fires in great halls or sword-swinging heroes here, just creaking longhouses, frost-bitten mornings, and the comforting scrape of wool against wood. You'll hear about the hard work it took to simply stay warm, the way food was stretched through hungry months, and how families found moments of calm in the flicker of firelight. So, find a warm place to rest, and let's travel back to a winter long ago in a Viking village built more on patience than plunder. Winter's arrival in the north. Imagine a far northern village as winter's chill settles over the land. Snow blankets the fields and rooftops in white silence. The days have grown short and dim, and a long dark season lies ahead. You are part of this tiny Norse farming village, and as winter begins, life slows into a quiet, determined rhythm. Inside your family's longhouse, the air is cool and smells of wood smoke. Thick sod walls and a thatched roof insulated with turf keep out the worst of the cold wind. In the center of the single-room house, last night's fire has died down to faintly glowing embers. The longhouse is designed for winters like this, a timber-framed hall about 20 paces long, with a high curved roof. There are no real windows, only a small vent in the roof that lets smoke escape and a little light in. Despite that opening, the arched roof helps channel heat back downwards, warming the space efficiently. It's not luxurious warmth, but it keeps everyone alive through the bitter Scandinavian cold. Outside, a pre-dawn wind howls and scratches at the roof's thatch, but within these walls you are sheltered and together. You wake to the sound of that wind scraping over the roof and the faint shuffling of livestock stirring at the far end of the hall. It's still mostly dark. Winter dawn comes late. Your breath mists white in the chilly air as you pull off your wool blanket and furs. For a moment you remain curled in your bedding, savoring the last bit of warmth. All around you, your family is beginning to stir as well. In the dimness, you can make out your younger sister bundled beside you and your grandmother's form on the next bench. A few coals in the central hearth cast a weak orange glow, barely illuminating the rough-hewn beams above. The bitter cold of early morning nips at any exposed skin. You reach for your cloak and wrap it around your shoulders before sitting up. The cloak is trimmed with soft fur, perhaps fox or rabbit, adding a layer of comfort against the chill. Like most of your clothes, it was made at home, woven woolen cloth for the body of the cloak, and fur from animals your family hunted to line it for extra warmth. Everyone sleeps in their clothing this time of year, under piles of animal hides, so that rising in the morning is a little less harsh. From outside comes the muffled lowing of your cow and the bleating of a few sheep. In winter, the family's most valuable animals often shelter with you inside the longhouse itself. At one end of the hall, beyond a wooden partition, you keep a small byre for the livestock during the coldest months. The warmth of their bodies and the manure's heat help raise the temperature indoors just a bit. It's not pleasant to share your home with cattle and goats, but their presence is practical. They're safe from freezing weather and predators, and the family will have milk and meat through the winter. A couple of goats stir now, and you know they're waiting for their morning feeding. A barn cat, kept to hunt mice, hops down from a rafter and pads close to the hearth, seeking any bit of warmth. You can hear the cat's faint purr as it curls up near the dying embers. These small sounds of animals and family members waking create a gentle morning chorus in the otherwise silent world of a Norse winter. A winter morning in the longhouse. You rise slowly in the dusk-like morning light. The first task is always to revive the fire. Kneeling by the circular fire pit in the center of the hall, you carefully stir the ashes. Your mother joins you, shawl wrapped tightly around her. Together you arrange dry kindling and a few pieces of birch bark onto the glowing coals. With a few steady breaths, you coax a flame. Soon, tiny tongues of fire lick up, and you add small sticks, then larger logs from the indoor woodpile. The new flames crackle and send shadows dancing on the walls. A plume of smoke gathers above and creeps toward the smoke vent in the roof. There is no chimney. The smoke simply finds its way out through that vent or the thatch, while much of the heat stays trapped inside. In a few minutes, the hearth is alive again, radiating precious warmth. Everyone gravitates toward it. You hold your hands out, feeling the numbness slowly leave your fingers. One of your brothers prods the fire and adds a peat turf, dried peat cuts from the bog, to make the fuel last longer. Wood is a treasure in winter. Every stick burned had to be gathered and hauled to the house, so it's used carefully. Still, the fire must be kept going most of the day. It is truly the heart of your home, providing heat for survival and a place to cook meals. Now the longhouse comes to life. In the growing firelight, you see the interior more clearly. Along each side wall are wooden benches built into the structure, doubling as seating by day, and platforms for sleeping at night. Above the benches hang cloaks, tools, and bunches of dried herbs and onions, all silhouetted in the flicker. Underfoot is the earthen floor, strewn with dry reeds and last night's ash to soak up spills and moisture. You slip on your boots, thick leather ankle boots lined with wool. They were well oiled with animal fat to keep out damp and cold. Even indoors, the floor is cold, so everyone often keeps their boots or heavy wool socks on. Across the room, your grandmother is coughing softly as she folds her blanket. She, like many elders, feels the cold deeply in her bones. She wears a layered wool dress and a shawl, and keeps a knitted cap on her head. Like most Vikings, your family dresses in many layers during winter. Wool tunics or dresses closest to the skin, with additional tunics, aprons, or jerkins on top, and finally thick cloaks or coats of fur for going outside. Even little children have mittens and socks made from felt or animal pelts. This morning, as every morning, you all bundle up before doing anything else. The Vikings have no magic against the cold, only careful preparation. Thick clothing, a well-tended fire, and sturdy shelter are your defenses against the freezing temperatures outside. Your father pushes open the heavy wooden door a crack and peers out to gauge the weather. A blast of frigid air and a swirl of snowflakes invade the hall before he shuts the door again quickly. It's a stormy morning. Snow must have fallen during the night. Judging by the drift piled against the door, the sun is just barely rising, though hidden behind grey clouds, a feeble glow low on the horizon that will fade again all too soon. In these northern winters, daylight is precious and brief. Some days the sun never fully shows itself at all, and the world remains in perpetual twilight. Everyone knows that the dark and cold will persist for many weeks. Yet winter has only begun. It's a daunting thought, but you push it away. There are chores to do that cannot wait, even in bad weather. Your father and oldest brother pull on their fur-lined cloaks, hats and mittens, preparing to go outside and tend to the animals that aren't kept indoors. Not all the livestock fit in the longhouse's small byre, of course. The rest are sheltered in a stable adjacent to the house. I'll check on the cow and the sheep inside here. You handle the barn, your mother says. She lights a small oil lamp, a simple clay dish filled with fish oil with a burning reed as a wick, and hands it to your father. In deep winter, it's often still dark during the early morning chores, so a lamp helps guide the way. Bundled tightly, your father and brother step out. You hear a muffled crunch as they push through fresh snow. Inside, you and your mother go to the pen in the longhouse where 2 cows and a pair of goats are kept. The animals shuffle on the straw-covered floor. It's warmer by their bodies, and the cows regard you with large, placid eyes. You scratch one cow behind the ears and talk to her in a low, soothing voice. She needs milking, and she's fidgeting, her udder heavy. In the corner, the goats bleat impatiently. You fetch a bundle of hay from a stack stored under a bench and spread it for the goats and cows. All summer and fall, your family cut and dried hay from the meadow, storing it carefully so the animals could eat through winter. There's a musky, earthy scent as the dried grass is uncovered, a reminder of green summer days long past. The goats munch eagerly, and the cow swings her head toward the hay as well. They'll be content for now. Your mother sits on a low stool to milk one of the cows, her hands practiced and calm, Frothy white milk streams into the pail, a welcome fresh food in season when little is fresh. You know this morning's milk will likely become part of today's porridge or be warmed with herbs to comfort grandmother's cough. Fresh milk is a luxury in winter, and you're fortunate your cow is healthy and producing. By the time the indoor animals are fed and milked, your father and brother return, stomping snow off their boots. Their cheeks are red from the cold, and a dusting of snowflakes clings to their cloaks. They carry eggs collected from the hens in the barn, a half-dozen brown shells tucked in a basket of straw. The chickens live in a small coop inside the barn, and though they don't lay as much in winter, you still get a few eggs, another nutritious boon. The sheep in the pen are fine, your brother reports, rubbing his gloved hands together. Hungry, but fine. I gave them hay. The old ew's a bit thin. We need to watch her. Your mother nods, concern on her face. The animal's health is your lifeline. Without them you'd have no wool, no milk or meat. Each creature must be kept fed, and as warm as possible. Ensuring the livestock are well fed and protected is a top priority for every Norse household in winter. Losing an animal to cold or starvation could mean hardship for the family. It's a constant worry on everyone's mind, but you do what you can each day to care for them. With the most urgent chores done, you all gather again by the fire for a simple breakfast. The hearth's heat has taken the chill off the room, and a pot of porridge now hangs over the flames, bubbling gently. The porridge is made from barley grains stored after the autumn harvest. Your grandmother stirs the pot slowly with a wooden spoon. Into the porridge she adds a bit of goat's milk for richness, and a drizzle of honey saved for special occasions. Not much. Honey is precious, but a little sweetness boosts everyone's spirits. In a clay kettle nestled in the coals, water is heating. Your mother adds dried herbs, mint and thyme, to steep a weak tea. It's not true tea, but a herbal infusion that at least gives warmth and a bit of flavor to the boiled water. Clean drinking water can be hard to get in winter. Often it must be obtained by melting snow or breaking the ice on the village well each day. This morning, the herbal brew and some diluted ale from a cask will serve as your drinks. Soon the warm, comforting smell of the barley porridge fills the hall. You all sit on the benches, wrapped in your cloaks, wooden bowls in hand. The children blow on their steaming bowls eagerly. Breakfast is humble but nourishing. Thick porridge sprinkled with a few dried berries and nuts that were gathered and preserved in the fall. You crack one of the fresh eggs into the pot as well, enriching the meal for the elderly members of the family. Food in winter must be high in fat and protein to keep everyone's energy up. The Vikings can't afford light, dainty meals in this season. You need hearty stews, breads, and porridges to stoke your inner fires. Fortunately, your pantry is well stocked, at least for now. Hanging from the rafters are strips of smoked meat, pork and venison from animals slaughtered or hunted months ago. Barrels of salted fish and brine-pickled herring line one wall. In cooler corners of the house, you've stored root vegetables packed in straw, carrots, turnips, and parsnips that can last for months if kept from freezing. Jars of dried peas and beans, sacks of oats and barley, and wheels of cheese sealed in wax are tucked safely away from rodents. All these stores are the fruits of the previous season's labor, carefully set aside to ensure the family can eat until spring. Preparation is key. Before winter arrived, your community spent countless hours salting, smoking, drying, and fermenting foods to preserve them. Now, in the dead of winter, you rely on that pantry. As you eat your breakfast, you're already thinking ahead to the main meal later, perhaps a stew with some of that salted lamb from the barrel, or dried fish softened in water and boiled with herbs. Fresh produce is basically non-existent now. The cabbages in the storage pit are long gone or wilted, but you do have some hearty vegetables like turnips and onions remaining, and plenty of smoked meats. A winter diet here is heavy and fatty, by necessity. In fact, the winter diet of Norse villagers was rich in calories, lots of meat, fish, dairy, and dense breads, all excellent for keeping bodies fueled and spirits warmer. As you finish the simple meal, daylight grows a little stronger, a pale grey light filtering in from gaps in the wood planks and the smoke hole above. Outside, the snowstorm has eased into a light drift. It looks as if the village will see a bit of calm weather for a few hours. That is a blessing, because everyone has work to do. In Norse life, even though farming and sailing halt during winter, nobody is truly idle. There are always tasks to tend to, necessary for survival. Your family of 3 generations all have roles to play. The elderly and the youngest will stay indoors, and the able-bodied will venture out or do heavier labor. Soon, the longhouse bustles with activity as you all prepare for the day's chores. Daily chores in the dark season. Your father decides that he and your older brother will try to hunt today, now that the snow has eased. The food stores, while adequate, will only last so long, and adding fresh game would help. Winter hunting is difficult. Prey animals are scarcer and wary, but it's often necessary to supplement the larder. They begin readying their gear near the door. Your father takes down a set of skis that hang on pegs by the wall. These skis are long, smooth pieces of wood, polished with animal fat. In these parts, skis are not for sport, but a vital tool for traveling across deep snow. With skis and a single pole for balance, a hunter can glide almost silently through the forests, far more easily than trudging and sinking into drifts. The quiet movement can be the difference between bringing home a deer or going hungry. Along with the skis, they prepare short hunting bows, a quiver of arrows, and a pair of spears in case of larger game or unexpected threats. Your brother checks the edge on his seeks a long knife and hatchet, tools that might be needed to butcher any kill or clear brush. They also don fur-lined leather hoods and extra mittens, since they might be out for hours in the biting cold. As you watch them, you recall past winters when hunting was truly a lifeline, when no fresh food could be had except what was caught in the wild. The Norse rely heavily on meat during winter, and families that hunt regularly go after anything they can find: deer, reindeer, wild boar, hare, and birds like ptarmigan or duck. Fur-bearing animals like foxes or wolves might also be taken for their warm pelts. Your father's cloak, for example, is lined with fox fur from a successful hunt last year. Those pelts not used for your own clothing can be valuable trade goods once the trading season resumes in summer. Before the hunters depart, your mother hands your father a small sack with some food, dried fish, and a piece of flatbread, and a water skin. There will be no midday feast out there in the snow. They'll eat a quick cold bite if needed. With that, your father and brother set off. Good luck, you say quietly as they leave. Hunting in winter is not only tiring, but can be dangerous if a blizzard blows in, or if they venture too far on weakening ice. But they are experienced, and they respect the wilderness. You watch through a narrow crack in the door as they push off on their skis, gliding into the snowy landscape. The world outside is hushed, the snow-covered pine trees black against the pale morning sky. Your brother's figure, spear in hand, disappears beyond a ridge, leaving only faint tracks that are quickly dusted over by the wind. With them gone, those of you remaining will focus on tasks closer to home. Back inside, your mother and grandmother have already begun the daily indoor work. One corner of the longhouse is dedicated to weaving. A large upright loom stands there, its weighted strands of wool hanging neatly. Over the summer, your family sheared sheep and collected wool, and much of that was spun into yarn during the autumn evenings. Now in winter, there is time to do the weaving and make new cloth. Your mother is at the loom, fingers deftly passing the shuttle back and forth. She is weaving a heavy woolen fabric that will become a new blanket by spring. The rhythmic thump of the loom's frame and the soft swish of yarn are comforting sounds, blending with the crackle of the fire. Spinning and weaving are among the most important tasks to keep everyone clothed and warm. In fact, creating wool thread with a spindle is so time-consuming that nearly every spare moment for the women and older children is spent twisting fibers. Even now, as your mother weaves, your grandmother sits nearby with a drop spindle, twisting wool into yarn. Her spindle twirls steadily, and a fine strand of yarn grows longer and longer from the fluffy pile of carded wool in her basket. This is humble, unending work, the kind of work that doesn't make exciting sagas, but truly keeps the household alive. The Viking winters would have been much harder without such industry. Every tunic, every pair of socks and mittens has hours of someone's effort spun into it. You join in by helping with another chore, repairing some clothing. You take a tunic that your brother tore during autumn woodcutting, and you settle down near the fire to mend it. Using a bone needle and linen thread, you carefully stitch the rent fabric. A basket at your feet holds other items needing attention. a wool sock with a hole to darn, a cloak hem that's fraying. Quietly sewing by firelight is a common winter activity. It's peaceful, almost meditative. As you work, you can hear the soft voices of others in the room. Your younger sister is humming a little tune to herself while she organizes some dried herbs. She's too small for heavy labor, but she helps in little ways, like sorting things or fetching water. On the opposite bench, your grandfather, too old to go out hunting or farming now, is occupied with carving some wood. He has taken a small log of birch and is slowly whittling it into shape. Curled shavings gather at his feet. He's making a new spoon to replace one that cracked. In the Norse household, everyone does what they can. The elders often sit by the hearth crafting small items, mending tools, or telling stories to keep morale up. The children help with simple tasks and learn by watching the adults. There is a sense that each person's effort, however small, contributes to surviving the winter as a family. After finishing the tunic repair, you set it aside and decide to help with another crucial chore, preparing more firewood. Even with a good stockpile of firewood stacked outside and some logs stored under the benches indoors, winter consumption is high. The fire must be fed constantly, and running out of fuel would be disastrous. You put on your cloak and mittens and step outside, axe in hand, to chop wood. The daylight is still wan and silvery, but your eyes adjust. The air is biting cold in your lungs after the smoky warmth of the hall. All around, the landscape is clothed in snow. The other village houses, just a handful of them within sight, have thin trails of smoke rising from their roofs, signaling that your neighbors, too, are tending fires and beginning their day. It's mostly quiet, except for the distant calls of some crows and the gentle crump of your boots in the snow. You make your way to the woodpile, where logs are kept under an awning to stay relatively dry. Brushing off snow, you set a log onto the chopping block. The axe swings and thwack. The log splits with a satisfying crack. You work steadily, splitting oak and pine logs into smaller pieces that will catch easily in the hearth. It's hard, muscle-straining work, but it warms you from the inside. In fact, physical labor like this is one way the Norse stay warm, by keeping the body active and blood circulating with chores and exercise. As you pause to catch your breath, you notice sweat starting to prickle despite the cold. A brief rest, and you continue until you have a good pile of split wood. Then you haul an armload of it back inside, where the heat and the smell of porridge hit you pleasantly. Indoors, the morning is wearing on with everybody busy at something. Your sister is helping mother by carding wool, drawing the raw wool through combs to remove tangles, preparing it for more spinning. Grandfather has finished carving the spoon and is now using a small piece of sandstone to sand it smooth. Grandmother has moved on from spinning to another task. She is mixing ingredients to make soap. Yes, even in winter there is soap to make, using ashes and stored animal fat so that the family can stay reasonably clean. Vikings are known even by their enemies to pay attention to grooming. You all bathe when you can, though in winter baths are infrequent and require heating lots of water. But personal care doesn't stop. Hair must still be combed and beards groomed. You see your uncle, who was injured in a fall last year and walks with a limp, so he stays in these days, seated near the fire, patiently removing lice from a fur cloak, using a fine comb. It's not a pretty task, but in close quarters like the longhouse, fleas and lice are an annoying reality. The warmth and presence of animals make a perfect environment for pests, so regular combing and washing of clothes in hot water help keep them under control. These mundane aspects of life, dealing with pests, cleaning tools, airing out bedding, continue even during the coldest months. By late morning, the light outside reaches its peak, though peak is a generous word in midwinter. The sky remains a dull grey, but at least it's fully day for a short while. You decide to take advantage of this and do a task that benefits from daylight, repairing a section of the wooden fence outside. The fence encircling your animal pen was damaged by a windstorm last week, and though the animals aren't using the outdoor pen much now, it will be needed come spring. So you gather some timber pegs and a hammer and head out again, your sister tagging along to play in the snow nearby. The cold is sharp, but you're dressed for it, and as you work to refit the fence planks, you appreciate the stillness of the winter day. Your breath rises in puffs. A few sparse rays of sun manage to break through the cloud cover, surprising you with a brief golden light across the snowy ground. You feel its faint warmth on your face, and pause to savor it. In winter, even a few minutes of sun are a gift. It reminds you that the sun is still there, inching a little higher each day after the solstice. While you hammer the fence back together, you think about the turning of seasons. The Norse people view winter as a trial of endurance, but also a natural part of life's cycle. In their mythology, the dark winter months are a time of testing and reflection, with the promise of rebirth when spring returns. That thought is comforting. However bleak the landscape looks now, you know it's only temporary. The sun will return, the snow will melt. It's a faith that runs deep in everyone here, and helps carry you through the darkest days. Fence repaired. You check on a line of rabbit snares, set near the edge of the forest by your property. Sometimes, these small traps catch a hare or grouse, adding a bit of fresh meat to the pot. Today, the snares are empty, and you reset them carefully, brushing fresh snow off the trigger mechanisms. Still, being out here gives you a chance to look around. The forest fringe is quiet, branches heavy with snow, no tracks of deer or fox visible. The silence is immense. You pull your cloak tighter as a breeze sighs through the pine boughs. On a clear day like this, the countryside can seem beautiful despite its harshness. The snow sparkles faintly where sunlight touches it, and icicles hanging from the eaves of the longhouse glint like crystal spears. It's a cold beauty that demands respect. You've heard elders warn of Fimbulvetra, the legendary great winter of Norse legend, a winter so terrible it lasts 3 years with no summer, heralding Ragnarok. As a child, those stories scared you, but they also made you appreciate that even a normal winter, like the one you face now, is not to be taken lightly. Real winters can certainly feel endless, but at least you trust that spring will come before too long. Returning inside around midday, you stamp the snow off and find the household still humming with work. The fire is merrily going, and a new pot has replaced the porridge kettle over the flames. It's the evening stew already being set to simmer. In winter, the main meal is often prepared slowly throughout the day. You see your mother adding ingredients to the iron pot: some dried peas, chopped turnips, a handful of barley grains, and strips of salted lamb meat that she sliced from a joint stored in the barrel. The savory scent begins to mingle with the smoky air. She also drops in a marrow bone for richness. Nothing is wasted when making stew. This thick soup will cook for hours, melding all the flavors, and will be ready by supper. She stirs it and adds a bit of herb, dill and thyme from the dried stores, and a pinch of salt. Food seasoning is simple. Salt itself is precious, gathered from evaporating seawater, or traded for, so it's used sparingly. The stew already smells appetizing, and you feel your stomach flutter with hunger, even though you ate breakfast not long ago. The cold has a way of burning through calories fast, and everyone here seems perpetually a little hungry in winter. With the stew underway, your mother takes a moment to sit by the hearth and rest her feet. You and she chat quietly, while you help her shell some nuts for later. Conversation in the longhouse often revolves around practical matters: how much hay is left, whether the roof is holding up under the snow, any repairs needed, and so on. But today, perhaps feeling a bit weary, your mother speaks of warmer times. She reminisces about last summer's harvest, about how abundant the berries were, and how she longs to taste fresh cloudberries again. Such talk is a little wistful. Summer's bounty feels far away now. Your grandmother chimes in with encouragement. "We're halfway through the dark now," she says. Though in truth, midwinter is just around the corner, not quite half. Each day we get a sliver more light, the worst will pass. The old woman's voice is firm. She has seen many winters, and her calm reassures you. It's true that the daylight has been lengthening, almost imperceptibly since Yule, the midwinter solstice celebration. And what a Yule it was this year. At the mention of growing light, your thoughts drift to the Yule festivities your village held not long ago. Even in these harsh times, the Norse find ways to inject joy and camaraderie into life. Yule, the great midwinter feast, is one such time for merriment. A few weeks ago, When the nights were longest, the whole village gathered in the longhouse of the village headman for Yule. It was a welcome break from routine, a time to laugh, eat, and make merry despite the dark and cold. You remember entering the largest hall, greeted by the golden glow of many lamps and torches. Evergreen boughs decorated the walls to remind everyone of life even in winter's deathly grip, and long tables were laid out with better fare than you'd seen in months. Everyone had contributed something: precious smoked meats, stored apples, cheese and ale that had been brewed especially for the occasion. For once your belly was truly full, feasting on roast pork and bread, and even some spiced wine that a traveling trader brought from the south. People told jokes and sang old songs. The children ran around playing until they collapsed by the fire. The villagers lit a great bonfire outside as well, a blaze to call back the sun. They danced around it under the starry sky. For that night at least, nobody thought of hunger or chores or the bitter wind. Yule is more than just a party. It's a beacon of hope in the darkest time of year. Even now, recalling it warms your heart. The tradition holds that Yule celebrates the turn toward the light. After the longest night, the sun's return is heralded with feasting and fellowship. It helped everyone's spirits, giving strength to face the remainder of the winter. Not every night can be Yule, of course. After the festival, daily life resumed its steady, subdued cadence. But smaller pleasures and pastimes are still woven into the winter days. This afternoon, for instance, once the major chores are done, there might be a little time for leisure. Your younger siblings have finished their simple tasks and begin to play quietly. They have a board game, Hannafatafla, a Viking strategy game somewhat like chess, carved onto a flat piece of wood with little stones as pieces. You smile as you see them crouch on the floor by the fire, one sibling teaching another how to play, reenacting a tiny battle of white stones versus black on the grid. Such games are a favorite way to pass time when it's too nasty to go outside. Meanwhile, your grandmother has taken up her spinning again, humming an old lullaby as the spindle turns. You decide to join your sister for a different kind of pastime. The two of you retrieve some bone needles and begin a little project of null-binding, a form of single needle knitting, to make a new woolen cap. It's delicate work done in the cozy lamplight while you sit on a fur pelt near the hearth. The rhythmic looping of wool yarn in and out is almost hypnotic. This too is both leisure and necessity. By spring the cap will be ready to wear. As you work, you listen to the sounds inside the longhouse. A pot lid rattles softly as the stew boils. The cat is purring again, now settled on the lap of your grandfather, who dozes upright for a short nap. The wind outside has picked up again, whistling at the eaves, but you feel safely cocooned here. Occasionally, someone steps outside to use the outdoor privy, or to fetch something, but nobody stays out long. There isn't much reason to wander outdoors in these freezing temperatures, unless duty calls. On more pleasant winter days, some villagers might indulge in a bit of fun outside. You recall a week ago when the weather was clear, a group of village children went out to a nearby frozen pond to skate on the ice. Using bone skates strapped to their shoes, they glided and laughed, enjoying the rare winter sun. You even joined them briefly, sliding on the ice with bones tied under your boots. A pastime Vikings enjoy not just for fun, but also as a way to travel across frozen lakes. Another time, you saw some of the older boys engaging in a friendly snowball fight in the field after clearing snow. They had built small forts out of packed snow and were tossing snowballs back and forth, whooping and strategizing as if at war. It's said that even such games have their purpose, teaching battle tactics in a playful way, but to you it just looked like good fun and a chance to blow off steam. These moments of play and laughter are vital. They remind everyone that winter is not just about hardships, it can also be a time of bonding and simple joys. Evening, hearthside togetherness. By the time afternoon shades toward evening, the meager daylight is already fading. The sky turns a deeper grey, and a few flakes of snow start drifting down again. Your father and brother have not yet returned from hunting, which is not unusual. Winter days might require them to range far to find game. Still, as dusk approaches, you start to listen more intently for any sign of them. Your mother has set a couple of oil lamps on wall pegs, casting a steadier light now that the daylight is nearly gone. Inside the longhouse, everyone gathers closer to the central hearth as the darkness deepens. The stew bubbling over the fire fills the room with a rich aroma of meat and herbs. It's nearly ready. Your stomach rumbles in anticipation. While waiting, your grandmother directs you to help her with one more task, making an herbal tonic. She hasn't shaken that mild cough, and winter colds have been going around the village. In a small iron pot at the edge of the hearth, you warm some milk and stir in a mixture of honey, crushed garlic, and herbs like thyme and yarrow. This is a traditional remedy she swears by. It might not taste delicious, but it's meant to soothe throats and ward off illness. In truth, sickness is a serious fear in winter. Crowded together in close quarters, with limited ventilation and animals nearby, people are susceptible to ailments. A simple cold can spread to everyone. More serious illnesses like chest infections or fevers are dangerous when medical knowledge is basic. Your community has a healer, a wise woman in the next village, but there's only so much she can do with herbs and poultices. So prevention is key, staying as warm and dry as possible, getting enough food, and using herbal brews for their slight benefits. As you hand the warm mug to your grandmother, you see gratitude in her eyes. "Tak, dear," she says thank you. She sips the concoction slowly. The firelight plays over her lined face. You wonder what winters were like when she was young. Likely just as cold, just as dark. She has lived through many by relying on the same wisdom she now passes on to you. Prepare well, endure together, and keep hope alive that spring will come. Good health, she often says, is as much about good luck as anything. So little rituals like this, a healing drink, a whispered prayer to the gods for health, continue alongside the practical efforts. At last, you hear a commotion by the door. The hunters have returned. You jump up along with your siblings to greet your father and brother as they stagger in, stamping snow everywhere. They are tired and cold, but smiling, and they haven't come back empty-handed. Over your brother's shoulder is slung a hare and 2 ptarmigans, white plumaged Arctic grouse. A small catch, but a success nonetheless. Everyone exclaims happily at the sight of fresh meat. Your mother quickly takes the game birds to clean them outside, while there's still a hint of light. The hare will be skinned and butchered tomorrow. It's already late, but the birds can be plucked now for adding to the stew. Your father's face is ruddy and he seems exhausted. He sinks onto a bench, pulling off his icy boots. You help him remove his skis and lean them by the wall. It was hard going in the forest, he says, wrapping a fur around himself to stop shivering. Deep snow. Thank the gods for the skis, or we'd have turned back with nothing. We saw deer tracks but too far to follow. Luckily snared these birds near the lake. He describes briefly how he spotted the ptarmigans sitting camouflaged on a snowbank and managed to shoot them with an arrow. Your brother, meanwhile, excitedly tells how he nearly bagged a fox but it slipped away. As they talk, you can sense both the fatigue and the pride in their voices. Winter hunting is a test of patience and skill. Today they proved themselves, and their effort means an extra hearty dinner for all. With quick efficiency, your mother and you pluck the feathers from the ptarmigans by the doorway to keep most of the mess outside. A flurry of soft white feathers drifts about as you work. Soon the birds are cleaned and jointed. Your mother brings the pieces to the pot and drops them into the stew. The meat will cook fairly quickly, becoming tender in the hot broth. A splash of mead is added to the pot as well, just a bit from a small barrel kept in the corner. Mead fermented honey wine is precious, but a cup added to the stew can deepen the flavor. Finally, she declares the meal ready. Everyone gathers eagerly. Wooden bowls are brought out, and you set up a couple of trestle boards as a makeshift table across 2 barrels. Seating is mostly on the benches, though a couple of the children sit cross-legged on the floor. In many longhouses, people didn't have permanent dining tables. They would use boards that could be set up for meal times and put away after. You follow that custom now. By lamplight and firelight, you all ladle the thick stew into bowls. The smell is incredible, rich with fat, herbs, and the aroma of slow-cooked turnip and meat. Each person also gets a chunk of yesterday's barley bread to dip. For the first few minutes there is little conversation, only the sounds of contented eating, spoons scraping bowls, quiet slurps, and murmurs of appreciation. After a day of hard work in the cold, a hot meal like this is truly life-giving. The stew is indeed hearty, warming you from the inside out. The ptarmigan meat, fresh and gamey, is a wonderful addition that brings smiles especially to the children's faces. They haven't tasted fresh meat in a while and chew happily. Your father raises his bowl slightly and offers a toast of sorts. "Skål," he says. "Cheers," though you're drinking more stew than any ale. Still, he does have a horn cup filled with a bit of ale which he sips. The rest of you drink a weak ale or mead mixed with water, except the youngest who have the herbal tea or milk. This is a modest family dinner, not a feast, but in the context of winter it feels celebratory enough. As hunger is gradually satisfied, the conversation picks up. The family exchanges news. Your father reports seeing wolf tracks far off in the woods, a reminder to be cautious with the livestock. Your mother says that earlier she heard that a neighbor's goat gave birth prematurely, a bit of bad luck. The kid likely won't survive the cold. These little bits of village news keep everyone connected. You all discuss what needs to be done tomorrow, perhaps a trip to the shoreline to try some ice fishing if the weather permits. The village is near a fjord, and when it doesn't freeze solid, some men will cut holes in the ice to fish for cod or char. Your brother expresses interest in going if others do. Winter fishing through ice is another arduous task, but the sea's bounty can be a great supplement to the diet. Dried fish like cod was a staple you've been eating. Catching some fresh fish would be a treat. Plans are tentative though. Everything depends on the weather's whims. Long night reflections. With dinner finished, the bowls are wiped out with crusts of bread, so nothing is wasted, and the remnants fed to the dogs. Yes, you have a couple of dogs, medium-sized, shaggy farm dogs that help herd animals and keep watch. They usually stay just outside the hall or in the entrance vestibule, but one of them now creeps in, tail wagging, to claim a few scraps. You pet the dog's head warmly. Its fur is thick and you can feel the heat it carries from being curled in a sheltered corner. The dogs are part of the family too, and they provide comfort and security. On many a long winter night, you've heard them bark at something outside, perhaps a wandering animal or an unfamiliar sound, and been glad to know they are on guard. After the meal, the evening's true leisure begins. It's completely dark outside, and the storm has picked up again. Wind gusts making the walls creak, but inside, the atmosphere is snug. A few of you tend to small personal projects by the fire. Your mother, never one to sit idle, has taken out a pile of old clothes that need patching. She chats softly with your aunt, who lives in the same longhouse with her small children. Your father is carefully scraping and cleaning the hareskin he brought back, preparing it for tanning later. The hide can become warm fur lining for boots or mittens. The children, however, are finally getting sleepy. The two youngest are curled up on grandmother's lap as she rocks slightly and hums. Sensing that a storytelling session would be welcome, your grandfather clears his throat and begins to speak in a low, gentle voice. Long ago, in the time of our ancestors, there was a winter so hard that even the fjord froze solid. At this, everyone quiets down, smiles and listens. Grandfather is the resident storyteller. He has a trove of old tales. Some are true family history, some mythic, some a blend of both. His voice is calm and deep, perfect for spinning tales on a winter night. Tonight he tells a favorite, the story of how Thor, the god of thunder, went fishing for Jormungandr, the great serpent of the sea. You've heard it many times, but it never gets old. As he describes Thor and the giant him rowing far out into a stormy ocean, you can almost hear the crash of waves and feel the cold sea spray, but all from the safety of your warm hall. The children are rapt, eyes reflecting the firelight, as they imagine the mighty Thor pulling up the serpent on his line. Grandfather recounts it in a soothing cadence, not emphasizing the violent parts too strongly, but focusing on the wonder of the gods and the awe of nature. Storytelling like this is one of the chief entertainments in Viking life, especially in winter when nights are endless. Through stories, history and beliefs are passed down, and morale is kept up. The sagas and myths also carry lessons of bravery, cunning, patience, virtues needed to get through tough times. As you listen, you feel connected not only to your own family, but to generations long past, who likely listened to similar tales on winter nights just like this. After the tale of Thor, your grandfather segues into a more personal story. The winter when he was a boy, and wolves came close to the village. It's a gentle reminiscence now, especially since he survived to tell it. The lamplight flickers lower as the oil burns down, and one of the lamps is extinguished to conserve fuel. No one minds, the fire provides enough glow. In the low light, the carved shapes on the posts, and the simple tapestries on the wall, depicting ships and animals, seem to dance. Your eyelids are growing heavy. You notice your younger sister has already fallen asleep, nestled against your mother's side. One by one, the little ones are carried to their sleeping spots. You help spread additional wool blankets and furs over them. The benches are quickly converted back into beds, with cloaks and sheepskins for padding. In a larger household like yours, privacy is scarce to non-existent, but there is comfort in togetherness. On this frigid night, none of you would want to sleep alone anyway. Body heat and companionship are as much a comfort as the hearth's warmth. Before turning in, your father banks the fire for the night. He piles on a couple of good logs, and then partially smothers the flames with ash, damping it so that it will burn slowly and not go out completely. This way, by morning, there will still be live embers to revive. It's always a bit of a guesswork. Too much ash, and the fire could die. Too little, and it might burn out too soon. But he's skilled at this ritual, having done it every night for decades. The fire settles into a steady, low burn. The glow casts a red tint on the rafters. The longhouse falls quiet now. Only the soft sounds of breathing, the occasional crackle of a log, and the moan of wind outside can be heard. You wrap yourself in your sleeping cloak and lie down on your usual bench spot. The wood beneath is hard, but you have straw-filled mats and furs to cushion you. As you adjust your position, you find a patch of fur that's especially soft. It's from a reindeer hide that was a gift from a traveling cousin. You drape it over your shoulders. Immediately you feel its insulating embrace. Across the dim room, you see your mother tucking a blanket around grandmother's feet and then settling down herself. Your father is still quietly sharpening a knife by the fire, but he'll sleep soon too, likely closest to the door as is customary for the head of the household. The door is barred securely against any intruders, human or animal. One of the dogs has actually snuck inside and curled up near the door, ever vigilant even in sleep. Lying there, you gaze up at the faint outline of the smoke hole in the roof. Sometimes, if the weather is clear and the fire low, you can see a star or two through that opening. Tonight, clouds cover the sky, but you imagine the stars beyond, and perhaps the shimmering northern lights that occasionally spread green ribbons across the winter heavens. The north has its quiet beauties, even in the coldest times. You reflect on the day that has passed. It was an ordinary winter's day, neither the hardest nor the easiest. No crises occurred. Everyone did their part. These are the days that truly define life, not the battles or voyages sung of in sagas, but the simple repeated acts of care and labor that keep a family alive and well. You feel a sense of humble accomplishment. The fence is fixed, more wood is chopped, food was on the table, and now all are safely at rest. There were moments of peace and even happiness, like grandfather's storytelling and the successful hunt. There were also the constant burdens, cold fingers, aching muscles, the gnawing worry about how long the stores will last. But as you lie in the darkness, those worries drift away for now, replaced by a gentle fatigue and a flicker of hope. In the silence, your mind wanders to the future. Spring still feels a long way off, but you picture the thaw, ice cracking on the river, green shoots poking through the wet earth, the sun gaining strength. It will come. The hardest part of winter is often the mental challenge, staying optimistic through endless nights. Yet your people have a resilient spirit. They even have a saying that winter is not forever, no matter how cold, or so your grandmother claims. The Viking ethos is to endure with courage and find ways to thrive even in adversity. You've seen that in action, whether through celebrating Yule or keeping hands busy with crafts. Everyone actively fights off despair and boredom. Community is another bulwark. Each person leans on the others. No one is truly alone. In this large household, there's always someone to talk to help with a task, or simply to sit beside by the fire. The ties of kinship and friendship are strengthened by these winter months of close living. You recall how earlier in the evening, your aunt quietly shared a larger portion of meat with grandmother, knowing the old woman needs it more, or how your mother insisted your brother take her thicker cloak when he went out hunting. Countless small kindnesses, born of living in close quarters and facing hardship together. Such gestures are the glue that holds the community through the dark season. As drowsiness deepens, you hear grandfather's voice, softly humming an old tune. Perhaps he thinks some are still awake, who need a lullaby, or maybe he sings to himself. It's a gentle, repetitive melody, like a chant. The words are about springtime and the return of the sun, fitting for a winter night. You feel yourself drifting. The image of a warm, sunlit meadow floats in your mind, even as a gust of frigid wind outside makes the walls tremble slightly. You pull the furs up to your chin and turn on your side, facing the glowing embers of the hearth. They pulse a deep red orange, a comforting sight. That small, glowing heart of the longhouse will burn all through the night, like a guardian watching over your sleep. Your last thoughts are simple and content. You have shelter, family, and food, the basics that many a winter in history has deprived people of. But here, tonight, you are safe. The longhouse around you might be plain and smoky, but it is your entire world in winter, a world of warmth amid the cold, light amid darkness, and life amid the stillness of nature's sleep. In this cocoon, you feel gratitude. You survived another winter's day, much like your ancestors did, and your descendants will, by combining hard work, clever use of resources, and the support of loved ones. This is how people in a Viking village endure the winter, not as solitary heroes braving the elements, but as families and communities weaving a fabric of resilience out of everyday moments. Outside, the snow falls softly, adding new layers to the drifts. The wind's howl has mellowed to a low whisper. Inside, one by one, the oil lamps have been extinguished. Only a faint glimmer from the banked fire remains, painting red shadows on sleeping faces. As you close your eyes, you might feel the cold on your nose, but the rest of you is snug under layers of wool and fur. The familiar sounds of your family breathing and the occasional stir of an animal are the lullaby of your home. This calm, boring in the best way winter life is far from the adventures of sagas, yet it has a profound rhythmic beauty of its own. It's the slow turning of the season, the humble perseverance through long dark nights, and the shared hope for the sun's return. In this peaceful moment, you drift into a gentle sleep, knowing that when you wake, you will tend the fire again and carry on, one day closer to spring's light. Sleep well now, in the heart of winter.